You ever feel like the little brother everybody forgets about? Like, you had your moment, but your older siblings, well, they're iconic, generation defining, practically untouchable. And no matter what you do, you'll never be allowed in that conversation. Even if you launched on modern consoles of the time, even if your animation was better than both of them combined, even if you have one of the most iconic artists of this generation design every character you have, nothing ever feels good enough. And as time keeps moving forward, people don't just overlook you, they forget about you completely. And full disclosure, I was one of those people, because really, in 2026, who's really thinking about this forgotten gem? But with literally nothing better to do,
I have nothing better to do. It is just ice. Okay.
and with Dragon Ball having its whole revival event last month, I thought there was no better time for me to bust out the old DSi and take this trip down memory lane with one of the only two DS games I still even own.
Look at this. I actually still have a DSi and Dragon Quest. Was that like 9? Whatever. But the only other DS game I still own is Blue Dragon Awakened Shadows. And so, we're here now with this video.
So today we're talking about the one that almost made it, the game that had the talent, the budget, the pedigree, and the iconic art style, the one that could have been genre defining, the legacy title that somehow never got its flowers because Blue Dragon wasn't just a JRPG. It was Microsoft trying to buy credibility, it was Sakaguchi trying to continue his legacy, it was Toriyama doing Toriyama things, and somehow this game became one of the most blink and you missed it kind of franchises of the early 2000s, with multiple video game entries, with multiple manga entries, and a really weird anime with a crazy second season that goes completely off the rails. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, I'm hoping to prove when it comes to Blue Dragon, it's more than just a forgotten little brother of the Akira Toriyama RPG games. Because when it comes down to it and you see everything, the games, the anime, the unhinged second season, the craziness of the mangas, you might walk away with a very different perspective. So, hey, I'm Remy, and I just want to know if anyone's checked on Blue Dragon, and if not, less, because this little brother of Chrono Trigger and Dragon Quest deserve its flowers. So let's talk about it. So imagine you're a billion-dollar corporation, which I know, granted it is a stretch, but if I was one, I would be making YouTube videos in hindsight, but don't worry about that. But just pretend you're one also, right? The company you're pretending to be is Microsoft, and Microsoft had a problem, and more specifically, Xbox had a problem, and the problem was Japan, because in the mid-2000s, the Xbox wasn't doing too hot in Japan. So Xbox, trying to make these numbers go up, they decided they desperately wanted the JRPG fans, but JRPG fans did not want the Xbox. So to get around this, Microsoft did the only thing it knew how to do: throw money at the problem. And to do so, deciding that innovation wasn't the right way to approach this, they tried to recreate comfort, classic systems, bright fantasy worlds, a name that practically whispers, don't worry about it, it's safe here. Come play our games. And hey, we even got the Dragon Ball guy. You love the Dragon Ball guy. Because on some levels, Blue Dragon wasn't designed to shock you. It was designed to reassure you, like, hey, you've seen this guy before. He's basically that one guy that you also really like that looks like that other guy. You love those legally distinct guys. We have that guy over here. You're gonna love this guy. And seemingly, that was the plan for Blue Dragon, to spend a bunch of money and to hire a bunch of industry vets to make this solid by-the-books JRPG. So when I say this game didn't just have talent behind it, that's me underselling it. This game hired legends to make this sound, look, and feel incredible. But this also creates crazy expectations, which this project unfortunately just never got to meet. So who are these legends they hired? Let's go over those real fast. So up first, setting an almost impossible bar for entry when it comes to Blue Dragon to try to clear was right here when they hired Hironobu Sakaguchi. And let me double check my notes real fast before I say this out loud. Yep, okay, that checks out. They hired the creator of Final Fantasy, not just some random guy that worked on it. They hired the guy that defined what JRPGs are supposed to feel like to some extent. That's like hiring the person who wrote the guidebooks on how guidebooks are supposed to be written, which is insane. And somehow they weren't even done with the A-list talent yet. Like I said earlier, they got the Dragon Ball guy, one of the greatest who will ever do it, the man who basically fathered modern shonen, Akira Toriyama, to do the art style. And when I tell you, this series only benefited from this man's pen touching it, because it's Akira Toriyama. This man cannot miss. His art style is so instantly recognizable, you could spot Akira Toriyama design from across the room, from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, GT, Super, Daima, Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, and yes, even the Turbo games. Okay, let me breathe for a second. Some of y'all might not actually know about those games, but yes, he did the art for them. They look incredible. The art goes crazy. It's just Akira Toriyama, man. He's so amazing. and I gotta stop glazing because I'm getting kind of crazy. So yeah, the art for this game, obviously A1. But what is a good game without good music? And for the music, they brought on another A-list, Nobuo Uematsu. And let me put that into perspective real fast. This man's nickname is the Beethoven of video games. Do you understand how insane that is to have earned that as an epithet? That is so tough, it's ridiculous. You walk into a room and just aura farm off your name alone. Like, what is this, man? What is this team? Microsoft practically brought together the Avengers to make this game. So when I tell you Blue Dragon wasn't just a game, this project was supposed to be the next big JRPG, because all these big names behind it is what happens when the stars align, when you practically have infinite budget, when you hire the best in the industry and all you tell them to do is make what you think a classic RPG should look, feel, and sound like. And on paper, this should have worked. This should have been the easiest layup, slam dunk, home run, whatever sport you like, kind of goal point thing, whatever. This should have been so easy. But here's the problem. When you build something entirely based around nostalgia, and you don't give it a real chemical X element, i.e. something modern, something risky, something new, you potentially limit how far that thing can go, and somehow stifling this project that should have been an easy home run. But enough about our A-list dev team, let's actually talk about the game itself, and we should start off by talking about the world. So on the surface, Blue Dragon's world looks really friendly. Bright colors, round buildings, big eyes, a distinct look/vibe that makes you think of early Dragon Ball. And it tells your brain, oh, this is just gonna be a fun time. But that's the trick, because underneath this surface, there's a looming shadow of a little bit of a darker plot. That is a shadow related joke. I don't make a lot of those in this video, but you will hear a couple of them, so get ready for that. Because every year, for a decade straight, these massive purple clouds show up, and whenever they appear, villages disappear. Not metaphorically, like literally they're wiped off the map. And at first, people think it's a monster. They even give it the name the land shark. But surprise, it's actually not even a beast at all. It's a machine, which ironically enough is your first clue Blue Dragon isn't your traditional by the books Dungeons and Dragons kind of fantasy RPG. When we finally get a bigger scope of the world, you realize this world is littered with lost technology, ancient ruin, robotic cities, underground factories that probably shouldn't even still be running, all hinting at some greater picture of a lost society. You even got fully mechanized cities in this world. You even have Nene's Flying Fortress, which, sidebar, Nene has the worst name of a supervillain. I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna quake in fear at the sound of Nene's coming. I know he's not the final boss technically, but it's lame. Nene is such a lame name, but whatever. As lame as he is, Nene's Flying Fortress is a cool element of this world. His ship hovers above the world, so far removed from the world, he calls it a different world below him entirely. The geography is pretty unique also. You have deserts, forests, frozen tundras, and a bunch of really cool locations with a bunch of lore behind them. For example, you have the laser fields, a wasteland where an ancient moon fires random orbital lasers at the ground because it seems like somebody left the keys to the Death Star on and they had it set to auto. And if that's not enough, deep inside the planet you have the cube world, artificially cube-shaped environments that look less like nature and more like a math problem gone wrong. And High School Me's biggest fears, math. That definitely not the cubes. And you know, like cubes are cubics. Everyone loves geometry. Freaking geometry, man, whatever. And despite all this, the world still feels inviting, and that's intentional because Blue Dragon balances childlike wonder against absolute tyranny of a purple man with a parrot that's actually like a demon lord, but whatever. To some extent, this entire world feels like it's right out of Toriyama's sketchbook, which if you're a JRPG fan in Japan or a Dragon Ball Z fan in the West, that's one of the most inviting things you could ever see. And at the center of this world, you have the kids. Because who else is gonna stop the big bad? Not the adults, excluding Zola, she's an adult. But to every other adult in this universe, clearly, why would you step up to stop evil? Alright, since I like you guys so much, I'm gonna put you on game. If you did not know, every good JRPG has a sign that says, if you're older than 18, jaded, and potentially pay taxes, you can't save the world. It's mostly because they're scared because you pay taxes, you won't save the world. That's so stupid. Whatever, man. Anyway, the ones who are tasked to save the world are the kids, who can summon shadows, who are blue, and with these massive shadow stands, they learn magic and fight to save the world. And in this universe, the shadows are the unique weapons that this game has. But unlike, let's say, a Buster Sword, these shadows are the literal manifestation of a user's will, which also made me realize I would have gotten folded in this world. My will as a child was as strong as a wet paper napkin. The moment things got slightly challenging, your boy was already in the other room, doing literally anything else. But enough about me being a horrible kid. I still want to talk about Blue Dragon as a whole. Overall, Blue Dragon isn't grim. Better way of saying it would be it's oppressive. There's a difference, actually. The world as a whole has moments of joy, it's bright in certain areas, but while all this is happening, it just happens to be under someone else's foot. And I feel like that's the contrast that you kind of pick up after playing this game, or at least going through the story and enjoying it to some extent. Because this world wasn't designed to overwhelm you. This goes back to the whole Microsoft wants this to be a gateway game for the future Japanese audience. This game was designed to be inviting. It was designed to welcome you in with a warm feeling of nostalgia and a smile. But when you put 30 hours in, you realize that guy that hugged you and gave you that feeling of nostalgia is actually a weird purple looking dude with glasses and a floating scrotum right next to him. And you're just kind of like, I should have looked at who was touching me earlier. This is kind of weird now. But okay, we've talked about the world, I have hinted at the characters. Now I really want to talk about the thing that drew me to this game in the first place, because I want to talk and gush about the art style. Okay, full disclosure, the only reason I played this game in the first place is because I thought it was more Dragon Ball Z, actually. I genuinely thought this was some prequel or some other lore I just didn't know about. I was a pretty dumb kid, in all honesty. I genuinely used to think Dragon Ball Z AF was real for way longer than I want to admit. But that's the power of Akira Toriyama's art style. It made me believe that this was more of the thing I already really enjoyed. Like, you're giving me more Dragon Ball in a brand new video game? Of course I'm gonna check it out. Because like I said earlier, Akira Toriyama's art style is so iconic and so appealing to fans, or just probably anime fans in general. It's because it's so distinct from everything else in the medium. Because even throughout the years when his art style has changed and evolved, it's still so consistent that you know what you're looking at when you see something. From his Dr. Slump era, when everything was soft, round heads, stubby bodies, and big expressions, all the way to when Dragon Ball happens, when it's still cute, still rounded, but suddenly people start kicking each other through mountains, and all of a sudden Dragon Ball starts defining itself, giving the characters better proportions, a little bit of muscle definition, while still keeping that roundness that Akira Toriyama had established in Dr. Slump. But by the time Dragon Ball Z rolls around, Toriyama goes full sharp mode. No more roundness, we're getting jawlines that can cut grass, hair that looks like weapons, and muscles that are so squared off they could probably break a circle. That doesn't make sense. But if you have seen early Dragon Ball Z designs, you understand these people were nothing but angular. But now here comes the post Dragon Ball Z time shift, where his style pivots again. Now we're getting leaner bodies, cleaner lines, less bulk, way more motion, a more modern, clean, sleek look for his designs. If you couldn't tell by now, before even Taro took over, all of his characters lost like 50% muscle mass. Just there was a shift at some point where everybody was like, you know what, I think I'm good off the protein. We're just gonna eat chicken. It's just really what happened. Everybody at a point just became super lean, muscle, and slim, which I'm not gonna say is a bad design. I will say I definitely know people that prefer the early 90s look of Dragon Ball when they were all bulky and angular. Me personally, I'm genuinely pretty cool with the new sleek look, honestly. As someone who grew up reading and watching Dragon Ball Z in their childhood, who saw the bulky, angular aspects, I like the new redefined, leaner looks personally. And that's why when I saw Blue Dragon for the first time, I was like, oh, this is just Dragon Ball Z. Did I read the name? Knowing myself as a kid, probably did. Dyslexia is a challenge for a child. It's a challenge for an adult too, but me as a kid was getting cooked by dyslexia. So I probably just saw the picture, saw the word dragon, and was like, okay, it's close enough. And then I bought the game. And that's the power of instant readability, which is why his art style works everywhere. From the NES to the DS, the Xbox 360, it still just looks good as it did back then. Today, from Chrono Trigger to Dragon Quest, even to Sandland, this art style allows people to look at these RPGs, these video games, these new franchises that aren't Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z related, and go, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot just because I like how this looks. So yeah, the art style does a lot of the heavy lifting, especially when it comes to Japan and JRPGs. I just brought up Chrono Trigger and Dragon Quest, which are two of the most popular RPGs of all time, all using Akira Toriyama's art style. So when this new little brother, this new contender pops up on the scene using this art style, it's already incredibly inviting on multiple levels. It tells you that it's safe because you know what this looks like. It tells you that it's familiar because you grew up playing Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, watching Dr. Slump, or reading Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. It tells you it's okay to look at this new game because you have seen this style before and you have nothing but good memories related to it. But unfortunately, that is the trick. Because underneath that friendly Toriyama smile, you do actually have to play the game, which is kind of where the art style can only go so far. So at its core, Blue Dragon is a very traditional JRPG, and I mean that in the most literal way possible. Turn-based combat, a classic overworld, towns for resting and shopping, dungeons packed with enemies all over the place, just pretty much everything you would expect from a classic JRPG you can find in this game. And the ones who really developed this classic RPG is Mistwalker. They have made some games. One was a mobile game that became a real game. Mistwalker doesn't have the biggest catalog, and that's a shame, but it is what it is. But during the dev cycle for this game, at some point they determined that the main gimmick was going to be the shadow system. Instead of fighting directly, you're partying with some of these massive blue shadows to do the heavy lifting. You'd have dragons, minotaurs, a phoenix, and a bat, which, you know what, you wouldn't think a bat would be cool, but they make the bat look kind of cool. And each shadow can be assigned a job, from a sword master to a white mage to even an assassin. All the classic JRPG jobs are in this game. And as you level up your shadow ranks, you unlock skills. And here's a really cool aspect of this game. Once you learn a skill, you can keep it even if you switch jobs. So you could be like a white mage, assassin, sword master, which is just really cool on paper. Like if you really put in the time and effort, you could make a really cracked build. So while overall the game looks simple, mostly because it is, I will say the amount of customization you kind of do get in it runs a little bit deep. Not too deep, but a little deep if you engage with it. When it comes to combat, it is strictly turn-based. No gimmicks, no real-time panic. Turn order is based on agility like the genre intended. It's got none of that Expedition 33 parry system. We ain't doing that here. We like the pure, the classic. We don't deviate from the system kind of RPGs. And don't get me wrong, Expedition 33 is actually really cool. So if you haven't played that game, please play that game. The parry system is so broken when you get good at timing. But regardless, when it comes to Blue Dragon, it is strictly just your basic turn-based RPG, which is a good thing for a lot of people, myself included. I was very much into that. And one of the coolest features, if you're anything like me and you love losing your life to a good RPG, that this is actually a relatively really long game. Like, I need to stress this, Blue Dragon originally shipped on 3 separate discs. That's over 50 hours minimum. You are in for a story and a half if you play this game. But here's the thing, while this game has a lot of cool mechanics, at the end of the day, this game has a giant blaring weak point, is that Blue Dragon plays it way too safe, man. The systems are polished, yes, but pacing is controlled, the story stays restrained, the shadows pack a punch, but that's really just kind of it. It's got the core mechanics down, but there's no real appeal if you're not just looking for a traditional RPG. As I mentioned earlier, this game really never had a Chemical X element, or the classic midpoint RPG twist that hooks you for another 30 hours of gameplay. Look, I'm not asking for some of the main cast members to die, but give me something that intrigues me, that interests me enough to make me want to lock in for another 30 hours into your game. And to be fair, they do have a betrayal in the game that's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that thing. But it's like, oh man, that sucks. Now my party's weaker. That's about it. That's how I feel. But the worst part is they couldn't even stick that landing because she joins you again by the end of the game. So it's like, why did we waste my time with this betrayal? It didn't amount to much. But where it did amount to much, surprisingly so, was actually in the anime, because the anime is a bit different from the video game. But we'll get to that eventually. For right now, we do have to talk about the DS games and even the manga that I brought up earlier. When talking about the DS games and the manga, we have to understand this is where Blue Dragon started to get just a little bit experimental. The DS games continue the story from the Xbox 360. And you might be wondering, hey, wait a second, Remy, I thought Xbox made Blue Dragon to get more people to play the Xbox in Japan. Well, thank you for paying attention, for one. And two, it didn't work. It did not work. Think about it, right? Japan is not a console-heavy market. No matter how cool a game looked on the Xbox 360, it was never going to compete with the DS in 2008. The Nintendo DS alone had already sold over 25 million units in Japan, while the Xbox 360, to be honest with you, it was fighting for its life to hit even 1 million. So this switch over to the DS was honestly a no-brainer. The DS offered a guaranteed audience when it came to the Japanese market, proving that the Xbox 360 just was not built for RPG fans. Now let's talk about the DS games themselves. The first one basically takes place right after the Xbox game. It's like DLC. Narratively, that's fine. The problem comes when you touch the gameplay, because it shifts quite drastically. Instead of it being turn-based combat once again, it becomes a strategy RPG, which is a little jarring to say the least, especially if you came straight from the console game to this. And remember that big overworld we had in the last game? Well, that is gone entirely, because now all you do is explore the cube worlds that you found out about at the end of the game. So depending on who you are, that could be a good or a bad thing. Pro, you get more of the original story just 1 year later. And as for the cons, if this is your first entry into Blue Dragon because you didn't own an Xbox 360 in Japan, you have absolutely no idea what is going on. Why is this a year later? What is the context? I have no idea. It's just a whole confusing entry point in all honesty. But Metacritic says it's fun, so you know what? I will agree with Metacritic probably. I actually never played this game, believe it or not. So if Metacritic calls it pretty decent, maybe it is. If you played it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about this game and your experience with it. Now on for the other DS game, the one I played, the one I showed you earlier in this video, my favorite Blue Dragon entry in the entire franchise, a solid 8 out of 10. What am I comparing it to? Don't worry about that. Just take my word. Solid 8 out of 10. This game had everything you could have wanted out of a Blue Dragon game. You had character creation, real-time hack and slash, multiplayer, a story. It also had music. Did I mention it had character creator? Look, truth be told, this game didn't have a lot going on. But you know what? Character creator was fun, and I got to put myself in a video game as a kid, and that makes it awesome. And while these DS games didn't set the gaming world on fire or become the next big defining JRPG on the DS in general, they did their job. They were fun. And honestly, gamers sometimes get too hung up on rankings and scores in my opinion. If I can look back and say I enjoyed the hours I spent playing it, then the game did its job, regardless of the sales numbers. And no, the sales numbers weren't great, they were just okay overall. But for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, these Xbox and DS games were part of our childhood or our teenage years, leaving us with memories I'm sure we wouldn't trade for anything else, because these moments that we enjoyed playing them are priceless. But what I might trade though are my memories of the manga, because the manga side of Blue Dragon is easily the most interesting slash confusing part of this whole media franchise. Okay, so check it out. When it comes to the Blue Dragon manga, let me tell you the first thing you don't think of, and that's Death Note. Because I'm pretty sure nowhere in your mind would you associate Blue Dragon and Death Note in the same conversation, and yet there is overlap. Enter Blue Dragon Raw Omega Grad, which is nothing like the games. I'm gonna be honest with you, there's elements that they borrow, but honestly, when I read this the first time, I was like, where's Shu? Where are my guys? Who are these people? Why is it so edgy here? I was so confused. And me personally, I was never the biggest fan of the series, but if you do want to know more about it, Trentine Art did a really good video deep dive into it. So if you want more on this crazy, edgy Death Note art style inspired story, by all means go check out their video. I think it's a good watch personally, so I just wanted to give them a shout out about their video. Now as for the other manga, I definitely have some thoughts, none of which are pretty nice to be honest with you, because we have Blue Dragon Secret Trick or Blue Dragon ST. So on a positive note, it's faithful to the original story for the most part. They do add a little extra element every once in a while, but pretty much you're gonna go 1 for 1. Con, the biggest con and my biggest holdup slash issue with this series is I absolutely detest the art style. I'm sorry, I cannot stand this art. This art hurts my soul. It just makes everything look so bad. Like, you can't show me Akira Toriyama's art and then whatever this is next to it by comparison. Look, obviously the artist is very well established and she has even a couple successful manga to her name. Just the art style, man. You can't show me Akira Toriyama and then show me this and make me think, oh, this is fine, because it's not fine. It's not fine at all. This is horrible. See, I'm not gonna say that. That's mean. I'm not gonna... Look, I got nothing nice to say, so we're just gonna keep it pushing. And we'll push right into the anime segment, because you know what? The anime deserves its love too. So as always, when it comes to Blue Dragon's extra media, things get kind of weird here, but at the same time, kind of interesting. Because the Blue Dragon anime isn't exactly an adaptation of the game, it's kind of a remix. Produced by Studio Pierrot, yeah, the Naruto and Bleach Pierrot, which lets you know off rip, this is gonna be a 50-50 on if it's gonna be good, because they did make the Bound arc. Ooh, they made the Bound arc. Anyway, the Blue Dragon anime runs for 2 full seasons consisting of 102 episodes, which is wild if you really think about it. They invested so much money in this IP because they really thought it was gonna work. But for the most part, the anime had the same characters and the same general vibe, they just had completely different priorities. In the game, the shadows were practically just tools. They existed to fight, to do the job, then go home. But when it came to the anime, the shadows were the complete opposites. No longer were this expressionless tools. These things had personalities, they argued, they had jokes, dog, they even had opinions, which is crazy because they're shadows. How does a shadow have an opinion? I don't know. Don't ask me. I just work here. And that single change reshapes this entire story. Like, imagine if your car one day became sentient and decided, you know what, I'm tired of driving you to work every day. Get a better job. And now you gotta take time out of your day to make your car understand that if I get a better job, I won't have you as a car anymore. And if I get a worse job, I also won't have you as a car anymore. So you better understand that we are going to this current job. Because we don't got the money to switch up yet. Now imagine doing that with something that's supposed to help you fight for your life. It's a whole other thing now with this kind of context. Now, if you lived in the US, you probably watched Blue Dragon on Cartoon Network around 2008. And surprisingly so, they gave it a pretty big push at the time, landing it on Toonami during the prime hours. It even got on Toonami Jetstream. On the localization front, Viz Media handled that. Unfortunately though, the English dub was edited to feel more Y7, leaning into this whole "this is for kids" angle, which is super counterintuitive because in the video game, they cuss. They're not like saying, "oh no, don't hurt them." They'll call people out. Like, I don't understand this approach personally. Now, on a visual front, I have no complaints. Toriyama's designs kind of work in every medium. Am I being biased? Who cares? It's Toriyama. Who cares? But off rip, the anime felt very Dragon Ball in structure and tone, the classic hero's journey. But that lies a problem with itself. Like I said earlier, when it comes to the game, the anime and the game were not on the same page. The anime's pacing is way slower, the plot's way more predictable, the world building obviously never reaches the same depths as the game. Critics were also calling this thing kind of cookie cutter, which, as someone who watched it back in the day, I can't disagree with them. It's pretty like by the books and generic. And now it only exists in places like Hulu or Tubi and maybe like Amazon Prime. And that's only for the English dub. If you want to go even more in depth, things really hit the fan there because they just say, you know what, the game's done and we got some more episodes, we're just doing something. So let's talk about the second season, the Trial of the Seven Shadows. Okay, here's a quick setup. There's no more shadow powers, everything is crazy, and there's three factions vying for control of the world. You have Rosekstan, pretty much military power trying to take over. You have the White Guardians who are trying to delete shadows from existence entirely. And finally, you have the Investiture beings who are just giving out powers like they're candy to random people and seeing what happens. And then you have our main cast who are now part of a resistance movement. The second season of Blue Dragon just has a lot going on, be it good or bad, I'll leave it up to you. But for me, it just felt like, hey, you know this thing we had established? Just pretend it didn't happen. We're keeping the same faces, but we're changing personalities. There's more fusions because who doesn't love the weird shadow fusion thing we do? It's just, it is so uncomfortable to look at the shadows with legs, but whatever. We're just doing whatever we want in the second season because I'm sure some producer on some level knew we're not getting another one, so we might as well have fun. And that's why Trials of the Seven Shadows feel nothing like the game. Season 1 at least nods towards the Xbox 360 story. Season 2 ignores the DS sequels entirely. There's new lore, there's new orders, there's new rules. The anime reinvents everything. Shadows now have history, personalities, and even voices. And Jiro in Season 2 is pretty much just future Trunks. He's no longer a strategist, he's just a warrior with a blade on his back, and he looks almost exactly like future Trunks, which I'm pretty sure is not a coincidence. This season isn't about a small group trying to save the world. It's about systems failing, about power being misused, and the cost of peace built on an unstable foundation. Trial of the Seven Shadows is messy, it's bold, and yet it's mostly overly ambitious, but for the most part, it is honestly a good time if you know nothing about the video games. If you know nothing about the source material, you could have a genuinely good time watching this. And yeah, that's about it. So now you know more about the Toriyama RPG family than you probably ever expected to, which I think brings us to this question. Did Blue Dragon really fail? Okay, so we're just gonna rip the band-aid off really fast. Yeah, it kinda did. It was locked into a platform that the Japanese audience did not care about. It was overshadowed by Dragon Quest. It didn't have the wild time-hopping ambition of Chrono Trigger. It leaned too hard into nostalgia, on a safe bet, and on comfort. And all that came together to give it one of the worst fates a video game can suffer. The game became invisible. Or maybe Concord, but mostly the invisible thing. But in all honesty, I don't think this game should have been invisible. Blue Dragon is genuinely fun, and at its core, it's basically RPG JoJo's, and who doesn't love JoJo's? This could have worked, it really could have worked, if Microsoft understood the market better, if they weren't afraid to push the story somewhere risky, if they trusted the talent that they hired to go a bit further with the IP. I'm not saying Blue Dragon would be the next Chrono Trigger, Dragon Quest, or whatever grandiose RPG in the world, but what I am saying, with that team, with that budget, this game should not have failed. It could have been something special. Blue Dragon isn't the favorite child. We already know this. You haven't seen a Blue Dragon game in years, and if I'm being completely honest, you probably never will again. But my point is, this was an experiment. A failed experiment, mind you, but an experiment everyone probably learned from. And every once in a while, I feel like we should still acknowledge that this experiment, as crazy and as hectic as it is, deserves a little bit of respect and deserves a little bit of its flowers, because I still think Blue Dragon is a good game overall. It's not perfect. If you've seen this video, you already know I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it's fun. And I feel like fun games can exist in a market where everything has to be perfect. So yeah, that's Blue Dragon, the little brother, the one born into a family of titans, standing beneath the shadow of Dragon Quest tradition or Chrono Trigger's ambition, and not leaving that big of an impact. But I personally don't think that's Blue Dragon's fault. It was put on the wrong platform, it wasn't given time to grow, it played it safe when the genre was changing, it kept showing up on different platforms, not fully becoming one thing, but becoming multiple facets and entry points into a series that had no real connectivity overall, just leaving people confused, which caused an audience to drift away, and in doing so, the interest for the IP. And it wasn't because it was bad. I won't say this game wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was just easy to overlook, and that's the biggest shame. But there is some positive news. The game still exists. Mind you, you gotta find it, and it's probably gonna be upsold on eBay or Craigslist, but if you do find it, if you get a chance to play it, the game still hit, and the art is still super great. I'm so biased. And in a world where people are constantly rediscovering DS games, Xbox 360 games, or early 2000s media in general, Blue Dragon is right there waiting, not as a masterpiece, not as a genre-defying titan, but as a reminder that even the forgotten sibling still matters. And maybe the stories that we miss on our first time viewing or playing or even glossing over aren't as bad as we originally thought when we give them the chance. So, hey, I'm Remy. Thanks for letting me check up on Blue Dragon. I know this is kind of a long video and you didn't expect it, but hey, just wanted to really talk about something I cared about, and we were currently snowed in, so I had time. But yeah, this has been a fun look back at Blue Dragon. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe and all the other fun stuff. I will see you in the next one. Y'all be easy. Later. Bye. Okay, yeah, Blue Dragon, man. I talked way more about this than I thought. This paper, the paper I wrote for this is 38 pages. I don't even know how I did that. It's just, I haven't wrote a 38-page video in a while. It's been a while since I did that. But Blue Dragon just kind of got me like creative, and I'm really glad I did that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It was fun to make, fun to write, and I'm trying to do a bit extra with these videos now. Gonna come out next month swinging hard. Y'all made yourself loud and clear. Last month was kind of iffy. I get it. Y'all don't like the video essays. I understand it. I'm chilling. I get it. My feelings are only slightly hurt, but I will move accordingly. So once again, into this video, I hope you had a fun time. And I get it, if you saw that clip at the beginning, that you're like, oh, that's not a lot of ice. Man, everyone hates ice. Ice sucks. Ice sucks so much. Read into that as you will. But yeah, for where I am in the South, that's just a lot of ice, and we just not moving like that. So, you know, everyone hates ice. But that'll be it for me in this video. I hope you had a fun time, whatever. Like and subscribe and all the fun stuff. I will see y'all in the next one. Y'all be easy. Later. Bye.